The sun hung low over Violia, painting the sky with streaks of violet and gold. The settlement lay nestled among towering crystal trees, their translucent leaves glowing faintly as dusk approached. Birds with shimmering feathers darted through the air, and distant rivers reflected the fading light like molten silver. For most residents, it was a peaceful evening, but inside the settlement hall, the air was tense with quiet anticipation. Leora moved carefully across the hall, her hands busy arranging supplies for the evening meal. Her bioluminescent skin glimmered softly in the low light, a mixture of green and blue patterns that shifted with her emotions. She kept her head low, focusing on her work, but her mind was elsewhere, restless and uncertain. Today was different, though she couldn't say exactly why. Something felt different. Her stomach twisted with a mixture of fear and hope, a feeling she hadn't experienced in years. From the far corner of the hall, Leora's mother, Celara, watched her daughter with quiet concern. Celara's amber eyes followed every movement, sensing the undercurrent of emotion in Leora that she had seen only once before. The day had started like any other, supplies arriving, children laughing, and the hum of daily life. But then the news came. A human rescue unit had arrived on the planet, and not just any human. Elia's. Leora froze, her hands hovering above the stack of food containers. The moment the door opened, the room seemed to shift around her. The chatter of the settlement faded into a muffled background hum. Her chest tightened, and for a fleeting second she felt as if time itself had stopped. Elias stepped into the hall, his uniform crisp, his posture calm but commanding. His eyes scanned the room, assessing, attentive yet gentle. When they landed on Leora, a flicker of recognition crossed his face. Celara noticed her daughter's sudden stillness and leaned closer, whispering softly, "Mom, it's him." The words slipped out like a secret carried by the wind, and Leora's heart jumped. She hadn't spoken them aloud, hadn't allowed herself to imagine that moment again. But now it was real. Elias was here. Elias moved further into the hall, careful not to overwhelm anyone. He had seen enough chaos in his life to understand the weight of presence, how one person could change a room without saying a word. Yet as his gaze met Leora's, he paused, a faint smile forming on his lips. Recognition dawned slowly, memory blending with the present. He had saved her once years ago during the raid on the distant colony at Thalora. She had been just a child, terrified and alone, and he had pulled her from the wreckage with nothing but determination and courage. He remembered the look in her eyes, the trust, the fear, the spark of hope that clung to him even then. Leora's mind raced. Memories came in fragments, the screaming of the other children, the fire and smoke, the alien raiders closing in. She remembered the hand that had grabbed hers, pulling her to safety. Elias' voice, calm and steady, guiding her, protecting her. She had never forgotten that moment, even if she had tried to. And now, standing before him, she felt that old wave of emotion crash over her. Relief, gratitude, confusion, something else, something she couldn't name. Elias approached slowly, careful not to make her uncomfortable. "Leora," he said softly, his voice carrying warmth and familiarity. It was the same name he had used back then, the same tone that had calmed her terror years ago. Her heart pounded so fiercely she thought it might escape her chest. She nodded slightly, unable to find words, her hands trembling. The settlement hall seemed to shrink around them. Other residents watched curiously, sensing a connection they didn't understand. Leora's friends and neighbors kept a respectful distance, sensing the moment's gravity. She felt exposed, yet strangely safe. Elias had always been that way, someone who could command attention without demanding it, someone who inspired trust even in strangers. Celara stepped closer to her daughter, her hand brushing against Leora's shoulder. "Go on," she whispered. "Talk to him." Leora swallowed hard, her throat dry. The words she had practiced in her mind 1,000 times now seemed impossible. How do you speak to someone who saved your life so long ago? How do you bridge the years of silence and distance with a single greeting? Before she could find her voice, Elias crouched slightly, lowering himself to her level, a gesture meant to reassure and not intimidate. "It's been a long time," he said. "Are you okay?" His eyes searched hers for an answer, patient, without pressure. Leora's voice finally came, quiet, almost a whisper. I'm fine." Her words were simple, but they carried the weight of years, of fear survived and of trust rekindled. Elias nodded, understanding far more than the words conveyed. "I'm glad," he said. He stood and glanced around the hall, acknowledging the other residents with a brief, polite nod. I'll be helping with the settlement's security and supply management while we're here. I want everyone to be safe, especially you." Her heart skipped again. There was that same certainty in his voice, the same quiet strength that had kept her alive all those years ago. Leora wanted to speak again, to tell him how much she had remembered, how much she had thought about him. But the words lodged in her throat, trapped by the fear of overwhelming him, or herself. The moment hung between them like a fragile thread, delicate yet unbroken. Then, a sudden commotion at the hall's entrance drew attention away from their private bubble. A shipment of supplies had arrived, and the settlement workers rushed to unload crates of food, medical kits, and equipment. The noise broke the spell, but Leora's gaze never left Elia's. He was here. He had returned. And somehow, despite everything, it felt like the world might be a little brighter. After the initial greeting, Elias moved to inspect the settlement, checking defenses and storage areas. Leora followed at a distance, her curiosity overpowering her nerves. She watched him interact with the workers, his presence calm but assertive, giving instructions without raising his voice, listening more than he spoke. There was an ease about him, a natural leadership that made people feel safe. She had always remembered that. As the day faded into night, the settlement settled into its evening rhythm. Fires were lit, casting a warm glow over the crystal trees outside. Residents gathered for a communal meal, laughter and soft chatter filling the air. Leora found a quiet corner and watched Elias distribute food and supplies, his hands steady, his movements precise. He paused to talk with a few children, asking them about their day, their fears, their dreams. Even the smallest of gestures, offering a bandage, sharing a smile, carried a sense of care and humanity that made her chest ache. Solara joined her daughter, resting a gentle hand on her shoulder. "He's good," she said quietly. "Even after all this time, he hasn't changed." "He's still him?" Leora nodded, her eyes fixed on Elias as he helped a young alien boy adjust a splint. There was no bravado, no need to prove himself, just presence, just care. Later, when the meal ended and the settlement quieted, Leora found herself wandering toward the edge of the hall. Elias had stepped outside, standing beneath the glow of the twin moons, looking at the horizon. He seemed lost in thought, a rare moment of stillness for someone usually in motion. Leora approached cautiously, unsure of how to begin, unsure of what to say. "Elias," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. He turned and a faint smile appeared on his face, a recognition, a warmth that made her heart flutter. "You're brave," he said softly. "I've heard stories about how you've helped around the settlement." His eyes held hers, steady and sincere. "I'm glad you're safe." "That matters more than anything." Leora hesitated, then nodded. I remember you," she said, "from before, when you saved me." Her words were simple, but their weight was immense. The memory of that day came rushing back, vivid and unrelenting. Elias' expression softened, a mix of nostalgia and something deeper, something he rarely allowed himself to feel. "I remember too," he said. "I never forgot." The air between them was electric, charged with years of unspoken emotion and the quiet bond formed in a moment of crisis long ago. For a long while, they stood in silence, watching the moons rise and the light shimmer across the crystal leaves. Words were unnecessary. Presence was enough. But even in this quiet, Leora could feel the tension of the world outside. The galaxy was vast, filled with danger, and the settlement's peace was fragile. She knew that their reunion was only the beginning, that challenges would come, and that Elias would have to face them. Yet, in that moment, she allowed herself a small measure of hope. If the human who had saved her once was here now, perhaps they could face whatever the galaxy threw at them together. As the night deepened, Leora returned inside, her thoughts a whirlwind of memory, gratitude, and something she hadn't anticipated, anticipation. The settlement might be safe for now, but she sensed that this night marked the start of a new chapter. A chapter where humans and aliens could forge trust, where courage and kindness could bridge worlds. And in the center of it all stood Elias, the human who had once saved her life, now standing as a quiet guardian in a galaxy that often seemed too vast and too dangerous for anyone to truly survive alone. Outside, the wind whispered through the crystal trees, carrying the scent of the rivers and the promise of the stars. Leora sat by the window, watching him in the moonlight, and for the first time in years, she felt that the universe might be just a little brighter. And deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning. The next morning, the settlement woke to the soft hum of activity. the crystal trees catching the light of Violea's twin suns. Leora moved among the bustling crowd, her skin glowing faintly in reaction to her emotions. Last night's encounter with Elias replayed in her mind constantly, like a spark refusing to die. Even though she tried to focus on her daily tasks, every glance toward the hall or the edge of the settlement had her heart skipping a beat. Elias, meanwhile, was already in motion. He moved with purpose through the rows of tents and workshops, checking supplies, making notes, and talking to the workers. His presence seemed to calm those around him. Even the youngest children felt safer in his proximity. Leora watched him from a distance, a mixture of admiration and nervous energy coiling in her chest. She wanted to speak, to ask him questions, to learn what he had been doing all these years, but the fear of disrupting the flow of his work kept her silent. It wasn't long before a small crisis broke the routine. A faint alarm sounded from the outer perimeter. Elias immediately lifted his head, his sharp eyes scanning the horizon. Leora's heart caught in her throat as she saw him move toward the command center, his steps fast but controlled. From her vantage point, she could see the settlement workers and guards moving into position, tension rippling through the crowd like a rising wave. Elias gathered the defense team quickly, issuing instructions in a calm, steady voice. Check the outer perimeter, keep civilians inside, make sure the supply caches are secure. Every word carried authority without arrogance. Everyone listened, motivated by his presence, their own fear tempered by his confidence. Leora couldn't help herself. She ran toward the hall, needing to be closer to understand what was happening. Her bioluminescent patterns flared as she moved, the glowing streaks of blue and green a reflection of her nerves. She ducked behind crates and barrels, careful not to draw attention, though part of her wanted Elias to notice her. Through the binoculars mounted at the perimeter, Elias spotted movement. A small band of alien mercenaries, armed with scavenged technology, was approaching the settlement. They moved quietly, but their intent was obvious. Elias' jaw tightened. He had seen similar raids before, and he knew how dangerous these attackers could be. One mistake, one hesitation, and the settlement could be overrun. He called out orders with precision, positioning the guards along the narrow paths leading into the settlement. "Do not fire unless necessary," he instructed. "We want to defend, not escalate, but be ready." His tone was calm, almost conversational, yet every word carried weight. From her hiding spot, Leora watched him organize the defense. She felt a mixture of awe and worry. She had never seen a human lead with such quiet power, such clear intelligence and care for those under his protection. Her instincts screamed that she should help, that she could make a difference. She stepped out from behind the crates and approached cautiously. "Leora," Elias said, turning at the sound of her voice. He didn't look surprised. Somehow he always seemed to know she was nearby, but his expression softened slightly. "Stay close, but be careful. Can you help me?" Her heart leapt. "Yes," she whispered. "I know the terrain. I can warn you if they try to sneak around the trees or rivers." Her knowledge of the land gave her confidence, and Elias nodded approvingly. "Good. Stay near the perimeter and keep your eyes sharp," he said. He moved to his team, while Leora ran toward the outer edges, her glowing skin helping her see in the shaded areas beneath the crystal trees. Her senses were heightened. She could hear the rustle of leaves, the faint hum of the approaching mercenaries' weapons, and the quiet fear in the settlement behind her. The attack began subtly. A small group of mercenaries tried to approach from the river's edge, using the trees as cover. Leora signaled immediately, sending a sharp beam of light across the clearing. Elias spotted it and moved his team to intercept. The confrontation was swift. The humans and aliens under Elias' command moved with coordination that surprised even the attackers. Leora watched as he took the lead, not by force alone, but through strategy, positioning, and timing. One mercenary tried to flank the settlement, creeping along the shadow of a rock formation. Leora's instincts kicked in. She darted through the trees and shouted a warning. Elias turned, saw the mercenary, and signaled a guard to intercept. The trap was avoided, and the settlement's defenses held. Through the chaos, Elias' eyes constantly searched for her, ensuring she wasn't in danger. Each time their gazes met, Leora felt a surge of relief and something else, a strange warmth she didn't fully understand. Their teamwork, though silent and unspoken, was instinctive. Years of separation melted in moments of necessity, replaced by mutual trust and recognition. The battle continued for nearly an hour. The mercenaries were skilled, but Elias' leadership and Leora's guidance gave the defenders a clear advantage. Using the terrain to their benefit, they channeled the attackers into narrow paths where their numbers and technology counted for less. Every strike, every move was calculated. Leora marveled at Elias' calm under pressure, how his mind always seemed several steps ahead. At one point, a mercenary managed to break through the defenses and rush toward the settlement hall. Leora saw him first and reacted instinctively, sending a warning flare and blocking his path. Elias appeared beside her in a heartbeat, neutralizing the threat with minimal force. He didn't shout, didn't panic. He simply acted as he always did. After the last of the attackers fled into the forest, the settlement breathed a collective sigh of relief. The damage was minimal, and no one had been seriously injured. Guards checked the perimeter while Elias ensured the wounded received care. Leora, though exhausted, felt a strange exhilaration. She had helped defend the settlement alongside him, and it had worked. Together, they had succeeded where many others might have failed. Elias approached her as the tension eased, his expression both tired and pleased. "You did well," he said quietly. "I could see everything you were doing. You kept us from being caught off guard." Leora felt heat rise to her cheeks. I just wanted to help," she murmured. Her hands glowed faintly, a natural reaction to her excitement and relief. Elias smiled, a rare, genuine smile that made her heart flutter. "Helping is exactly what we needed," he said. "You've grown since I last saw you. Stronger, braver, I'm proud of you." The words were simple, but they struck her deeply. She had spent years doubting herself, fearing her abilities were not enough. Hearing him say that made her feel seen, truly seen, for the first time in a long while. The rest of the day passed in a blur of repair work and preparation. The settlement workers patched fences, reinforced weak points, and checked supplies. Leora stayed close to Elias, assisting where she could and learning from his methods. He explained the strategies behind each decision, his voice calm and patient, teaching without condescension. She listened intently, absorbing every detail, every nuance of human tactics and planning. By evening, the settlement had regained its rhythm. Fires were lit once again, and the residents gathered to share food and stories. Leora sat near the edge of the hall, her glowing skin dimming in the softer light. Elias moved among the crowd, ensuring everyone was accounted for, always returning to check on her. She noticed the quiet way he observed, the care behind his actions, and her admiration deepened. When the hall had emptied, Leora finally found herself alone with him near the riverbank. The twin moons reflected on the water's surface, casting a gentle glow. She took a deep breath, summoning the courage she had held back all day. "Elias," she began softly. I never imagined I'd see you again, after all these years." Her voice trailed off uncertain. He turned to her, his gaze steady. "I never forgot you," he said. "I thought about you often. I hoped I'd have the chance to see you safe again." His words were honest, and they carried a weight that made her heart ache. They walked along the river, side by side, the silence between them comfortable. It wasn't just the memory of the past that connected them. It was the present, the trust and teamwork they had just demonstrated. In a world full of uncertainty and danger, they had proven they could rely on one another. As they paused to watch the reflection of the moons on the water, Elias spoke again. "I don't know what the future holds for this settlement or for any of us, but I do know this: humans and aliens can protect each other. We can face dangers together and survive." Leora nodded, her glowing patterns pulsing gently in agreement. I believe that too," she said. She realized with a mix of relief and excitement that this was the start of something new, something stronger than fear, stronger than past horrors. Trust, courage, friendship. Perhaps even something more. The night deepened, and the settlement grew quiet once again. Fires burned low, casting long shadows across the crystal trees. Leora and Elias remained by the river, talking quietly about small things, memories of childhood, the ways the settlement had changed, hopes for the future. Every word, every glance strengthened the bond that had already begun to form. For Leora, the day had been a revelation. The human who had saved her once was more than a memory. He was here, a living, breathing presence, teaching her, guiding her, protecting her. And in his presence, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: hope. Real, tangible hope that they could survive, and maybe even thrive, in a galaxy filled with danger. As the first light of the twin suns began to creep over the horizon, Leora and Elias finally returned to the settlement hall. The residents were waking, preparing for the day ahead, unaware of the quiet but profound connection that had deepened overnight. Leora glanced at Elias one last time, her heart filled with a mixture of gratitude, admiration, and anticipation. She knew the challenges were far from over. The galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and often merciless. But with Elias by her side, guiding, protecting, and trusting her, she felt ready to face whatever came next. And somewhere deep inside, she knew that this was only the beginning. The morning sun rose over Violia, painting the crystal trees in soft amber light. The settlement stirred with quiet energy, the survivors rebuilding and tending to their routines after the previous day's skirmish. Leora moved among the workshops and tents, helping distribute supplies and checking on the injured. Her skin glimmered faintly in the morning light, reflecting both her alien heritage and her current emotions, a mix of pride, tension, and the lingering excitement from seeing Elias yesterday. Elias had been awake long before anyone else. He moved silently through the settlement, inspecting defenses, coordinating tasks, and quietly observing. The attack had shown him that Violia was vulnerable, and he knew it was only a matter of time before greater dangers arrived. He paused at the edge of the settlement, looking out across the forests that surrounded them. Somewhere beyond those trees, threats waited, mercenaries, rogue factions, and the unpredictable dangers of a galaxy that had never been kind. Leora approached him quietly, careful not to startle him. "Elias," she said softly, "are you thinking about yesterday?" He turned to her, his eyes sharp yet calm. "I am," he admitted. "What we faced was small compared to what could come. The mercenaries were organized, yes, but they were only a test. Something bigger is out there, and I need to know what we're dealing with before it finds us unprepared." Her heart raced. "Bigger? What do you mean?" He gestured toward the horizon, where the forest stretched endlessly. "We've received intelligence about a rogue faction. Humans and aliens working together, exploiting settlements like ours for profit and power. They have technology that could neutralize our defenses. If they come here, the settlement won't stand a chance." Leora's glowing skin pulsed with worry. She had always been cautious, but now fear pressed against her chest. "We have to stop them," she said firmly, almost without thinking. "I can help, I know these lands. I can guide you through the forest, show you where they might be hiding." Elias studied her for a moment, seeing both determination and the faint tremor of fear. "I need you," he said simply. "You've survived more than anyone realizes. If we're going to face this faction, I want you by my side." They spent the morning preparing. Leora guided scouts through the forest, mapping out paths, natural choke points, and hidden vantage areas. Elias studied the terrain, his mind calculating strategies, imagining how to use the settlement's defenders alongside natural obstacles. Together, they moved with an unspoken rhythm, their teamwork honed by shared experience and mutual trust. By midday, they were ready. Elias gathered a small team, selecting the most capable and trustworthy guards and volunteers from the settlement. Leora led them along a winding path through the dense crystal forest, moving silently and efficiently. Every rustle of leaves, every distant bird call, and every glimmer of movement in the shadows was noted. Hours passed, and the tension grew. The forest seemed alive, almost watching them, as if it understood the danger that lurked within. Leora's heart beat fast, her bioluminescent patterns flaring as she sensed movement ahead. She signaled to Elias, pointing to a shadowed area where the rogue faction had set up an ambush. Elias nodded, adjusting the team's formation. "Stay calm, follow my lead," he whispered. "We move carefully, take them by surprise, and minimize risk to everyone. Remember, this is about defense, not revenge." The ambush unfolded with brutal efficiency. The rogue faction had underestimated them, assuming a small human-led team would be easy to trap. Leora guided the defenders through narrow paths, flanking the attackers and using the natural terrain to their advantage. Elias moved at the center, directing, defending, and ensuring the team remained cohesive. At one point, a rogue mercenary slipped past their formation, running toward the settlement with a weapon capable of great destruction. Leora's instincts flared, and she raced to intercept, positioning herself in the mercenary's path. Elias reacted instantly, joining her side. Together, they cornered the attacker, neutralizing the threat with precision and minimal harm. The encounter left Leora breathless but exhilarated. She had faced danger head-on alongside Elias, their connection deepened by the shared fight. She realized something she had not admitted before. She trusted him completely, perhaps more than she trusted anyone else in the galaxy, and she wasn't alone in feeling it. Elias' eyes, calm yet intense, held a depth of care that made her heart ache with gratitude and admiration. After hours of skirmishes, the rogue faction regrouped, forcing Elias and Leora to retreat to a safer vantage point. They paused near a crystal-clear river, its waters reflecting the twin moons that would soon rise. Both were exhausted, their muscles tense, but their minds remained sharp, analyzing the enemy's movements and predicting the next strike. "We can't let them regroup," Elias said quietly, scanning the distant forest. "If they reach the settlement with reinforcements or technology to disable our defenses, it could be catastrophic. We need to know their plans, their numbers, and how they move before we face them again." Leora nodded. "I can take a small team and scout ahead. We'll report back with anything we find. It's risky, but I can do it." Elias looked at her, concern etched in his face. "You've already risked a lot today, but I trust you. Just be careful, remember what we've learned, use the terrain, stay in communication." With that, Leora led a small group of scouts deeper into the forest, moving silently and cautiously. They navigated natural traps, shadowed ravines, and crystal thickets, avoiding detection while gathering intelligence. Leora's senses were heightened, every sound and movement analyzed. Her heart pounded, but she felt a strange clarity. This was her strength, her knowledge of the land, her instincts, and the courage that Elias had inspired in her. Hours later, they stumbled upon the rogue faction's main encampment. Advanced technology hummed softly in the shadows, alien weapons lined neatly, and humans and aliens worked together in an uneasy alliance. Leora's eyes widened. The threat was far greater than she had imagined. She signaled silently to her team, noting the layout, the guards, and the potential weaknesses. Suddenly, a misstep, a snapped branch alerted one of the patrols. The rogue faction sprang into action, and Leora's heart raced. They had been discovered. She sent a warning flare, signaling Elias, and turned to fight or evade. Her team scattered, moving through the forest with agility and precision. Elias appeared seemingly out of nowhere, leading reinforcements and using the terrain to corner the rogue attackers. His calm presence steadied the team, and his tactical decisions allowed them to retreat without casualties. Leora's relief was immense as they regrouped at a safer distance. She met Elias' gaze, and in that brief moment, words were unnecessary. Their trust had been tested, and it had held. The encounter left them shaken but determined. Elias gathered the team and began planning the next steps. "They're more organized than we expected," he said, "but so are we. We've learned about their movements, their strengths, and their weaknesses. We can use this to our advantage when we defend the settlement." Leora nodded, her energy returning. "And we'll be ready. I know the paths, the hiding spots, and the best points for ambushes. We can use the forest to make sure they don't reach the settlement again." As they moved back toward the settlement, the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of violet and gold. Fires were lit within the settlement, casting long shadows across the crystal trees. The residents were weary, tending to their homes and loved ones, unaware of the close call their protectors had faced. When they returned, Elias checked on every team member, ensuring no one was hurt or overlooked. Then he turned to Leora. "You were amazing," he said quietly. "Without you, we could have been caught off guard. Your knowledge, your instincts, they saved lives today." Leora felt a warmth she could not explain, a mixture of pride and something deeper. I just did what I could," she said softly. Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the intensity of her emotions. Elias smiled, a rare, unguarded expression that made her chest tighten. "You did more than that," he said. "You reminded us all that courage comes in many forms, not just strength or firepower, but knowledge, intuition, and heart. You have all of that." That night, as the settlement settled into quiet once more, Leora found herself near the riverbank again, thinking about the day's events. Elias joined her, standing silently beside her as they watched the moons rise over the crystal forest. The water reflected their images, twin figures bathed in silver light, tied together by shared experience and trust. "You've grown so much," Elias said softly, breaking the silence. "Stronger, wiser, I can see it in the way you move, the way you think." "You're ready for what comes next?" Leora nodded, feeling a mix of determination and uncertainty. "I want to be ready," she said. "I don't want to let the settlement down or you." Elias' expression softened, and he reached out briefly, a hand hovering near hers but not touching. "You won't. We face this together, and whatever comes, we survive because we trust each other." For the first time in a long while, Leora allowed herself to feel hope that went beyond survival. They had faced danger, uncertainty, and betrayal, and yet they remained unbroken. Together, human and alien, they could face the galaxy's threats and emerge stronger. The night deepened, but the bond between them grew stronger, silent yet unspoken, built on shared trials and victories. They didn't need words for everything. Trust, courage, and understanding flowed between them naturally. Somewhere in the distance, the forest stirred, hinting that greater dangers were yet to come. But Leora no longer felt fear. She had Elias at her side, and together they had proven that humanity's strength was not just in arms, but in heart, mind, and courage. And deep inside, she knew that the next battle would test them more than ever. But with the lessons learned, the trust rebuilt, and the courage sparked between them, she was ready to face it. The settlement stirred before dawn, the soft glow of the twin suns beginning to light the crystal trees. Fires burned low, casting flickering shadows across the tents and workshops. The air was thick with tension. Word had reached Elias that the rogue faction would return, and this time they would come prepared. The humans and aliens of the settlement had little time to rebuild, yet every hand worked with purpose, moving with efficiency born of fear and determination. Elias stood at the edge of the settlement, looking out over the forest. His eyes traced the paths, the riverbanks, and the crystal groves. He had studied the terrain, memorized the patterns of enemy movement, and prepared defenses that would give the settlement every possible advantage. But even with careful planning, the stakes were higher than ever. A mistake could cost lives. Leora approached quietly, her glowing skin faintly shimmering in the early light. She had slept little, her mind racing through strategies, contingencies, and what-ifs. "They're coming," she said softly. "I can feel it. The forest," it whispers, "something is moving." Elias nodded. "Good instincts, we'll use that. You know these lands better than anyone. Lead the scouts and alert me to anything unusual. Every moment counts." Together, they moved along the perimeter, checking the traps, positioning guards, and coordinating signals. Every resident who could fight was ready, armed with weapons, shields, or tools modified for defense. Humans and aliens worked side by side, their trust in Elias and in each other evident in every gesture, every nod. The first sign of the enemy was subtle. Shadows shifted in the forest, branches snapping under careful weight. Leora signaled immediately, and Elias' team moved into position, silent and efficient. The rogue faction emerged, more numerous than before, their weapons glinting in the rising sun. They had armored suits, energy weapons, and tactical devices designed to neutralize human technology. But Elias was ready. The battle began quietly at first, a test of nerves and precision. Arrows and energy bolts streaked through the air, defenders taking careful aim, forcing the attackers to advance cautiously. Leora darted through the forest, guiding small groups of defenders, setting ambushes and cutting off flanking maneuvers. Her bioluminescent glow pulsed in patterns that only the scouts could read, a silent language of warnings and directions. Elias moved at the center of the defense, coordinating the human and alien forces. His voice, calm but commanding, carried over the sounds of battle. "Hold your positions. Focus on control, not aggression. Watch each other's backs." His strategy was precise, using the settlement's natural terrain to divide and slow the enemy, forcing them into channels where their technology was less effective. The rogue faction advanced relentlessly, but they underestimated the combined skill, courage, and ingenuity of Elias' team. Leora signaled again, leading a group to intercept a small squad attempting to bypass the main defenses. Elias anticipated the move, positioning sharpshooters and using energy barriers to funnel the attackers. One rogue soldier tried to break through near the storage area, but Leora intercepted, her glowing form moving like a shadow among the crystal trees. Together, they cornered the attacker, neutralizing him without unnecessary violence. The battle escalated as more attackers appeared, some attempting to climb the crystal trees to gain height advantage, others using stealth technology to slip past the defenders. Elias adapted quickly, changing formations, shifting defenders, and coordinating with Leora's signals. He noticed the way she moved, predicting enemy movements with uncanny accuracy, and he knew the battle would have been far harder without her. Amid the chaos, a larger threat emerged. The leader of the rogue faction appeared, wielding a device that pulsed with dangerous energy, capable of disabling the settlement's shields and defenses. Elias recognized the danger immediately. "That's the key," he shouted. "We take him out and the rest will falter," Leora's heart pounded. "I can distract him," she said. "Lead him into the river path. The water will interfere with his device." Elias considered for a moment, then nodded. "Do it. I'll cover you. Everyone else follows my lead." Timing is everything. With precision, Leora moved swiftly, drawing the leader's attention. She darted through the crystal forest, her glowing patterns flaring brightly, confusing and misleading him. Elias coordinated the defenders, moving to block the rogue faction's support teams, creating a path for Leora's plan to succeed. The leader followed her, energy pulses crackling dangerously from his device. Leora led him toward the river, weaving through the crystal groves, forcing him to navigate treacherous terrain. She glanced back briefly, seeing Elias and the defenders holding off the attackers. Her pulse quickened, but she kept moving, relying on instincts and training. At the riverbank, Leora executed the final part of her plan. She led the leader into the water, which sizzled against the energy device, causing sparks and a temporary malfunction. Seizing the moment, Elias and two defenders moved in, disabling the rogue leader and securing the device. The remaining attackers, witnessing their leader defeated, faltered and retreated, leaving the settlement victorious. The battle was over, though the settlement bore the marks of conflict. Smoke rose from scorched earth patches, broken crystal branches littered the paths, and defenders tended to the wounded. Yet the settlement had survived, stronger and more united than ever. Humans and aliens shared glances of relief, gratitude, and mutual respect. Elias moved through the settlement, checking on everyone. He paused when he saw Leora sitting by the river, exhausted but glowing faintly in pride. He approached quietly, kneeling beside her. "You were incredible," he said softly. "You saved lives today, you saved the settlement." Leora looked up at him, her glowing patterns dimming slightly. We did it together," she said. "I couldn't have done it without you." Her words were modest, but her eyes shone with pride and relief. Elias reached out, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "No," he said firmly. "You led when it mattered most. You were brave, quick, and smart. The settlement owes you more than you realize." For a moment, silence settled between them, broken only by the gentle ripple of the river and the distant sound of the settlement returning to normal. Leora felt a surge of emotion, gratitude, admiration, and something deeper. She realized that she trusted him completely, and that trust had been tested in the heat of battle. They had faced danger together, survived, and come out stronger. The residents began to gather near the central hall, celebrating their survival. Humans and aliens shared food, laughter, and stories. The camaraderie forged through shared struggle stronger than any difference of species. Elias and Leora walked among them, assisting where needed, their presence a calming and inspiring influence. As night fell, Leora returned to the riverbank, the twin moons reflecting on the water's surface. Elias joined her once again, standing quietly, his gaze on the horizon. The forest was still, peaceful after the storm of the day. "You were amazing today," he said, breaking the silence. "I knew you had courage, but I didn't realize how much heart you had. You led people, you guided them, and you kept everyone safe. You've grown into someone remarkable." Leora felt warmth rise in her chest. I just did what I could," she said softly. "I wanted to help to make sure no one else would be hurt. I didn't want to be afraid." Elias smiled, a rare and gentle expression. "Fear is natural, courage is acting despite it. You've shown more courage than many I've known, human or alien. You've reminded me why humanity, why people, can inspire hope even in the darkest moments." Her eyes widened slightly, the weight of his words sinking in. Elias was not just acknowledging her bravery. He was showing the same belief in her that he had shown years ago, the day he saved her. That belief had shaped her, strengthened her, and now she felt its full impact. For the first time in years, Leora felt completely safe, not just physically but emotionally. She knew she could face whatever dangers came next, as long as Elias and the settlement were together. She also realized something deeper. This bond, formed through trust, danger, and shared purpose, was something she had never expected yet could not ignore. Elias remained silent for a moment, watching her. Then he spoke again, his voice low but sincere. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Humans, aliens, and everyone who calls this settlement home. We survive because we trust each other and because we care enough to fight for one another. Leora nodded, feeling a rush of emotion. Together, she agreed. She allowed herself a small smile, her glowing patterns flaring faintly in the moonlight. They stayed by the river, side by side, until the settlement quieted and everyone returned to their homes. The forest, once tense and foreboding, now seemed protective, almost welcoming. It had witnessed courage, unity, and the bond between human and alien forged through struggle and survival. For Leora, the events of the past days had changed everything. She had faced fear, danger, and uncertainty, and had survived not alone but with Elias by her side. She realized that humanity's strength was not just in technology or force, but in courage, compassion, and the ability to inspire others to rise above fear. And Elias, he had reminded her that even a single human could make a difference, that hope could exist even in the most dangerous corners of the galaxy. Together, they had protected their home, their people, and their future. As the twin moons shone on the river, Leora felt a sense of peace she had never known. The rogue faction was defeated, the settlement safe, and trust had been forged stronger than ever. She glanced at Elias standing silently beside her, and for a first time in years she felt the full weight of gratitude and admiration. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and often cruel, but together humans and aliens could survive. Together they could thrive. And for Leora and Elias, this was only the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with hope, courage, and the promise that humanity's heart and bravery could shine even in the darkest places.